everyone, and welcome to Deep Dive Daily. Today, we're jumping right into the very heart of how India is governed. We're talking about that constant push and pull, that delicate dance for power between the central government in New Delhi and all of the states. It's a constitutional balancing act that makes the world's largest democracy tick. And really, this is the fundamental question, isn't it? How on earth do you create a single, unified system of government for 1.4 billion people? A country with such an incredible, mind-boggling amount of diversity, different languages, cultures, histories, all packed into one nation. This was the massive challenge staring down the architects of India's constitution. So, what was their answer? Well, they landed on a federal system, but one with a uniquely Indian flavor. The real blueprint, the rulebook for all of this, is found in the 7th schedule of the Constitution. This is what divides up all the powers, specifically the power to make laws, between the center and the states. Let's get into how it works. Okay, the easiest way to think about this is like a yours, mine, and ours agreement. First, you've got the union list. This is the mine for the central government. It covers the big national stuff. Think defense, foreign affairs, currency, things that affect the entire country. Then you have the state list. That's the yours for the states. It covers more local issues like the police force, agriculture, and public health. And finally, there's the concurrent list. This is the ours pile. It's got things like education and forests, where both the center and the states can make laws. But what about things that aren't on any of these lists? New issues that pop up that nobody could have predicted. In the United States, for example, any of these leftover powers, they call them residuary powers, automatically go to the states. But India's framers made a very different choice. They decided any subject not mentioned on the lists goes to the center. And that single decision right there tells you a lot about the initial design. It was built with a bias towards a strong central government. And that brings us to a really crucial point about India's federal structure. The scales of power aren't just tilted, they were intentionally designed that way. This was no accident. You have to remember the context. The country's leaders were dealing with the fresh trauma of partition and the huge task of bringing hundreds of princely states into the fold. So for them, national unity was everything. They deliberately created a union of states with a very powerful center to hold it all together. And you can really see the extent of the center's power here. Under the Constitution, there are 5 specific, extraordinary situations where the central parliament can step in and make laws on subjects that are normally reserved for the states. This can happen during a national emergency or to implement an international treaty. It can even happen if the Rajya Sabha, that's the upper house of parliament, which represents the states, passes a resolution saying it's in the national interest. But of all the constitutional tools the center has at its disposal, none is more powerful or, frankly, more controversial than the one found in this single article, Article 356. So what is Article 356? It enables something called President's Role. Essentially, it's a constitutional override switch. It gives the central government the power to suspend an elected state government and take direct control if it believes the state can't be governed according to the Constitution anymore. As you can imagine, this is an enormous power. It directly challenges a state's autonomy, and it's been a major source of friction for decades. And there's another layer of central oversight to talk about, the office of the governor. The governor is appointed by the president and basically acts as the center's eyes and ears in each state. But here's the critical part. A governor has the power to hold back a bill passed by the state legislature and send it to the president for approval. This effectively gives the central government a potential veto over state laws. So, with a system designed with such a strong central bias, you can probably guess what happened next, right? Friction was pretty much inevitable. As India's politics changed over the years and different political parties started running the center and the states, those calls for more state power and more autonomy got a whole lot lower. A real turning point came in 1967. For the first time, you had non-Congress governments come to power in a bunch of states, and they started pushing back against the center's dominance. This really kicked off decades of debate, leading the central government to set up major commissions, like the Sarkaria Commission in the 80s, and then the Punchy Commission in 2007, to take a hard look at this relationship. And this quote from the Sarkaria Commission's report just nails the problem perfectly. They said that over-centralization leads to blood pressure at the center and anemia at the periphery. What a great way to put it. It basically means if you concentrate too much power at the top, you get an overworked, stressed-out center and weak, ineffective states that can't get anything done. The mission was to find a healthier balance. Okay, so we've identified the problem. What's the fix? Well, the vision that's really come out of all these years of debate is a move toward an idea called cooperative federalism. And the Punchy Commission, in its 2010 report, was crystal clear about this. They said that cooperative federalism, this idea where the center and the states act as partners, not as a boss and a subordinate, is absolutely essential for India's unity, its integrity, and its development. The whole focus shifted from a relationship of dominance to one of partnership. So, what does that partnership actually look like in practice? Well, the Commission's laid out a pretty clear roadmap. First, real consultation. The center should talk to the states before making laws on those shared subjects in the concurrent list. Second, restraint. The center should think twice and then think again before using its overriding powers. And third, you need to strengthen institutions like the Interstate Council so there's a proper place for the center and states to sit down and work out their differences together. And all of this brings us to one final thought. While the Constitution lays down the rules of the game, the actual relationship between India's center and its states isn't set in stone. It's this living, breathing thing, constantly being shaped by politics, by economics, and by that ongoing need to balance national unity with regional dreams. So at the end of the day, the balance of power isn't a settled fact. It's a constant negotiation. I hope you found this explainer useful. For more deep dives like this one, please make sure you like this explainer and subscribe to Deep Dive Daily. Thanks for watching.